Welcome back to the after show party of the Lion King 10-year celebrations. And what an honor it is to meet a genius and a legend. Julie Taymor, how are you?
Oh, I'm very good, you can imagine. Yes.
Well, I've just sat through the most incredible performance with the most energy I've ever seen in the West End. It was unique, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was like a rock show. It was really thrilling to feel that audience so identify with every single moment up on that stage.
What's it like being you, sat there watching something you created 12 or 13 years ago, and it's all about you?
No, it's not all about me. That's the point. I'm very proud, obviously. I also feel it's a big mountain to try and go over. I feel a little like Yul Brynner, you know? Am I ever going to be able to get something in the theater that's quite on this level? It's not that things have to be. Lion King is unique. I felt that tonight. What it is, not just as a theater style, and the story is, you know, it's not that it's mundane, but it's familiar. It's actually the people who are in it, isn't it? It's this extraordinary worldwide phenomenon that we can have actors from Brazil, Trinidad, the Philippines, Indonesia, Africa, you know, in the various 13 countries we've been, who all make it their own. It's not like they're doing an American New York City, jazz piece of the 30s or a rock and roll thing that belongs to Europe. It really is something that draws from culture all over the world, but hopefully in its own unique way. When people say, oh, there's Indonesian shadow puppetry, no, there isn't actually. There's techniques that I've gathered and we've gathered from various experiences, but with all my collaborators and with these performers, it is uniquely its own. So I'm overwhelmed by how it is embraced by not just the audience, by the performers who are in it. You know, you heard me tell about South Africa a little bit. Well, there's many more stories, but in South Africa, it was incredibly political. We had a black Timon and a white Pumbaa. And the Timon was a Soweto accent, and the Pumbaa was Afrikaners. And that could never happen. And they're outcasts, living outside. And so for the audiences there, this was incredibly meaningful because these were best friends. Every single thing in South Africa had a social poignancy. And we now have a couple of those performers here. I'm very excited that Andile from South Africa is playing the adult Simba. But I'm blown away by it. I'm critical. I have some problems, but they all go away with the joy of the show.
And that's the thing. I mean, you can't look at it from your perspective. You've got to look at it from the overall reaction at the end. And the universal opinion was, it's an amazing show 10 years on. It's still spectacular. And that's not easy to do because a lot of shows seem to age, don't they?
No, this didn't age. In fact, I've been told that this year in London is the best year Lion King has had. And overall, it's equal to the original cast. And maybe in some ways better than some, but I can't say that. I'm very partial, obviously, to always original casts anywhere, but I was not disappointed at all. It's a beautifully etched acting cast, and it doesn't tire. I think that there are basic things in The Lion King, a certain simplicity, even though people say spectacle, at its best, just a circle of silk being drawn into a hole representing drought is one of the high moments, or a little $2 shadow puppet of a mouse in a circle of light right after that big spectacle. And I feel that those were the discoveries early on that, you know, you can do the most simple things in theater if they're metaphorically right for the moment. And audiences get moved in a very profound way, and probably more moved than by the big special effects, because they really understand that it is a soul and a spirit that is moving it.
It can't be very often in a career when you get everything in the right place at the right time. You had Elton John with the music, you had Tim Rice with the lyrics, La Boheme to do his business as well. And it just created this beautiful sound. I mean, He Lives in You is such a simple scene again, but it made me cry. I'm a grown man. What are you doing to me?
Yeah. Well, I think He Lives in You, which is repeated, They Live in You, He Lives in You, is probably, from my perspective, the greatest song in there. And it is a piece that is about spirituality. You know, you can say, oh, they live in you, it's, what is it, in a literal way. But the words that Lebo wrote and Mark Mancino wrote really are about belief in something greater than the self. And I remember discussing this story in America when we started it, how many African American families are broken. You know, they're split apart. And this you can talk about this as a fable, as an animal tale, but you can also talk about it as a phenomenon, a social phenomenon, where the young son has to come home again to his family, to his people, to his tribe, and put on the mantle. So I think people get this show on multiple levels. I've often talked about the theatricality as a double event, where you get the human and the mask simultaneously. And sometimes with the puppetry, you see the manipulation, and sometimes you don't. And that's the high art of it. But I think that this piece operates both on something that everybody understands, which is the coming-of-age story, what is it to experience death as a child. You know, Disney in their films ages ago never shied away from the dark stories, and neither does Hans Christian Andersen or any of the children's fairy tales. That's what they're there for. They're there to take children through these passages of life experience. And without going into too much detail, I've had the incredible joy, and I wouldn't say sorrow, but I've been hit in the heart many times by stories of people who've come at a time in their life where they needed to see it. And you know, I spent many years in Asia, 4 years when I was 21, where I did see theater act in its original form as part of a religious ritual, and I understand its place culturally. We often say it's pure entertainment or it's escapism. But when it's at its best, it actually does both. And I think Lion King is one of those shows that's able to have a foot in both worlds.
I was very lucky to do a breakfast show in Nairobi in 2000. And when I saw this just shortly afterwards, and since then I've interviewed cast on Broadway and here every year since, and it still moves me and takes me back to that place, and you've captured that so beautifully. Thank you for the memories. Thank you for this wonderful show that is going to live on forever. And you've really done the business with it on every single level. Julie, thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you so much. Very much appreciate it. Thank you.